It's cool. All right. So, first and foremost, I want to say thank you to Taofeek and the organizers of this gathering for putting this together. Right? When you told me about it, I was really excited because it's not often. They do this a lot in Ibadan. People come together, start talking about literature, poems. Exactly. No, I'm serious.
I know.
They do it in Ibadan a lot. So it's good for diffusion if we spread the ideal to all the states, whether content creator. Our bros has already what do you say? He has already abused us at the beginning. No. I'm not defending. I understand it's important. So today, quickly, since we're talking about the becoming of poems and poets, so it won't be bad if we start from the poems part, right? The becoming of poems. I think nobody here, we're not strangers to the art of poetry, writing, blah, blah, blah. But one thing that, because I don't want to waste our time, one thing I want to start with is the part of the reading. The reading. Say reading.
Reading.
Kawein.
No, not a reading. Reading.
Reading. There is, you don't have a choice. If you want to be good, if you want to be an excellent poet, copywriter, non-fiction writer, fiction writer, you want to write advertisements for Don Jazzy, you must be a reader. There's nothing you can do. Do you understand? You don't have a choice, because if you don't build your intellect, there is nothing for your poems to stand on. Do you understand? When you sit down to write now, that's why I started writing poems. Okay, poetry came to me randomly. You understand? There are people that when I've heard of situations whereby people say that they don't like reading because they don't want to be influenced by someone's style. That's absurd. That's absurd. Because if you don't read, there's nothing that builds. Let's think of it this way. When you're reading, imagine a pool that has a lot of particles that you need, but those particles are at the base of the pool. Reading is steering that pool. Do you understand? When you're reading, you're steering that pool, you're steering the pool. Whenever you steer the pool, those particles, they come up for a while, right? And like, oh, I can see this stuff is coming to the surface. But when you stop reading, what happens? The pool settles down again. So that's when you now begin to feel like, it happens to everybody. It happens to me. It happens to you. Yeah. So that's the first thing. Somebody say reading.
Reading.
Becoming of poems, you must read. Say I will start reading. Come on now. I will start reading. No. If you've been reading before, still say I will start reading. Then the next thing is the writing part. Say writing.
Writing.
Because there are a lot of writers on social media who do not write. Do you understand? There's a lot of, I'm a writer, I'm a poet, I'm this, I'm that, and there's no writing going on. I'm not saying publish, Do you understand? I'm not saying in this journal or that journal. I'm saying writing. Ouch. Do you understand? So if there's no writing ongoing, if there is no mistake. Yesterday I was looking through my private journals. I wrote something in my private journals earlier this year, like around June 4, June 7, that period. I wrote something, I said, I'm not feeling enough. Do you understand? It means that on the page, when you go to the page, it's normal when you get there and you feel threatened. Do you understand? It's normal when you sit down and you feel threatened and you feel overwhelmed that you want a perfect result. You want to read your poems and everybody will be screaming the way we were screaming when he was reading. Do you understand? But before that can happen, you must write fucked up shit. Do you get what I'm saying? You must write nonsense. Say nonsense.
Nonsense.
You must write nonsense. If you don't write nonsense, you can't get to the sense at all. I promise you. See, I promise you. If you don't write rubbish first, if you don't make mistakes, that's why editing is important. Do you understand? That's why the first draft is not the finished product. You have to make that mistake. You have to do a lot of things on the page. So, now the next thing, at least for making poems, I'm just rushing through it because I know we're late already. Is the part where you have to be patient with yourself. Do you understand? You have to be patient with yourself. Because the way this thing is set up now, or the way social media has done a lot of good for us, right? But for instance now, if you're on Twitter, as soon as you log into Twitter, someone is sharing a poem that they've just published. Do you understand? They're sharing something that one really lovely mag that you like just published. But if you're not patient with yourself, you write something now, right? You write it now, and because of that anxiety to publish, you send it out the next day. And the work may not be ready. Do you get what I'm saying? So, there are some poems that you sit down, you write, and in that first write, you have most of the essential elements come out, shine forth. And then later, you can just come to edit and do one or two things. Do you understand? But there are some poems that you are supposed to write it now, write maybe one line today, or write the first draft of 10 lines, and then you abandon it. That's patience. You abandon it, and then you come back weeks later to that same work. Because what you need for your poems, what you need for a poem to be what it needs to be, not what you want it to be. Because there are times, there are some times that you want to sit down, you're like, okay, today I want to write about police brutality. Police punch person, police give an uppercut, blah, blah, blah. But by the time you get to a place, you realize that you are no longer talking about police brutality. You are talking about the failed state. Yeah, you understand? For poetry, that is the meat of the job. You understand? That is the meat of the job. So when you find yourself, or when you find the poem resisting your touch, when you find the poem resisting your direction, learn to yield to it. You understand? Yield. Learn to yield to it. I'm not going to have fiction. Even this is important advice for fiction too. Fiction. If you have your mind set on a plot, this is what I want to happen in this story in my head. If you don't follow the story and you force your intentions on a plot, what happens is that the people who are reading will see it will now look like when you are watching a Nollywood movie, where you know what is about to happen. Because if you are too conscious about the writing process, do you get what I mean? If you are too conscious, I must make sure that this guy punches this guy. I must make sure that when he punches him, he ties his shoe immediately. What if that's not what your poem needs? What if that's not what the piece of writing needs at that point? Do you get? For instance, when he was talking the other time, Anonymous Cherif, when he was talking, he was talking about a particular poem. He said he wanted to write about, what happened last year. He sat down, he had gone past where the shooting happened. So he wanted to write about it. But then he got to a place where words were not enough. Do you understand? So he yielded to the impulse that was coming. Yes. So that's what led to that experimental poem. If he had forced it, if he had said that, I must write about how people were running around, I must write about the blood, bullets, blah, 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 that poem would not have happened. Do you understand? So that's what I'm saying. So be patient with yourself. Tap the person, say be patient. Be patient now. Who are you chapping? Let me give you an example. Who knows Mary Oliver? I'm an evangelist of Mary Oliver. So if you don't know Mary Oliver, you know Mary Oliver today. You know Mary Oliver today. Mary Oliver is she's an American poet. She's asleep now, asleep in a cool place. One day, we don't know when she'll wake up. Oh, isn't that cute? Okay, but she's dead. That's what I mean by she's asleep. She's dead, like really dead for real. She's not coming back. but I just had to say that. But the truth is that, just to emphasize the point of patience, she wrote, and wrote, and wrote. And it turns out that when her work came up, you know when your work does not conform to the popular style, when your work does not conform to the popular style, there's this tendency to want to switch your voice to what is trending, blah, blah, blah. So when you stay true to your voice, and when I say voice, it does not mean that when you write, we can't see your influences. I'm going to talk about influences. When you read Taofeek, he was talking the other time, he was talking about Rumi, one of the people that has influenced his poetics. So when you're writing, people will still be able to get a sense of where you're coming from. When I was reading Flourish's poem the other time, I said, oh, you've been reading Ernest Ogunyemi a lot. He said, yes. Do you understand? Having a voice does not mean that we wouldn't be able to see your influences, but that's just by the way. But it does not mean that you have to become a photocopy of the next person. Do you understand? And this is different from, they wrote a lot of sonnets in the past, right? A lot of sonnets. But a Shakespearean sonnet is not the same thing with an Hopkins sonnet. Do you understand? There is that distinctiveness involved. Okay, so the next thing is that you should... Hello, everybody. You're eating, are we? Yeah, you're just stuffing yourselves. Now, there's something I want to say. That inspiration plus a schedule equals a good poet. Let's say it together. Inspiration plus a schedule equals a good poet. Inspiration plus a schedule plus non-writing equals a great poet. Are we together? The first half of the equation is that you are gingered, right? I want to write this really awesome thing. So, there are sometimes you get hit with inspiration and you're like, I need to write this now. And let's say you're now a disciplined person, that you have time that, you've read all those how to be a good poet, and you've gone online. And they say, oh, write every day. Pick a particular time in a day that you're going to write. Inspiration plus a schedule makes a good poet. Now, inspiration plus a schedule plus non-writing. Yes, non-writing. Yes, plus non-writing makes a great poet. Meaning that in as much as you acknowledge the need for a schedule, in as much as you recognize the place of discipline, you must also recognize that you must live. Do you understand? You must live. That is where the poems will come from. You don't have to write about your life. Do you get me? Not every poet writes about their own life. But to be a witness, you must be alive. To be a witness, you must exist in the world. Do you understand? So inspiration plus a lovely schedule plus non-writing makes what? A great poet. Thank you. I know you wanted to clap, I understand. You clap. I know you wanted to clap, so it's cool. So then we have, I want to talk about influence now. Influence. There is no doubt that a lot of us came into poetry through the door of pain. Am I saying something? There's no doubt that a lot of us came to poetry through the door of pain, through the door of grief. Yes. Let me tell you my own. I was in the hospital on admission because of repeated overdose, because of mental illness, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. So some of us came to poetry through pain, through grief, through heartache, and a ton of things. But that is not all that your poetry could be. Do you understand? But I don't mean that you should change your themes. I mean that, let me read what I have here. I mean that a poem can soothe, can inspire, can excite, but a poem is not a therapist. Do you understand? A poem can provide solace. A poem can provide catharsis. But your poem or the act of writing is not your therapist. Do you understand? It can help, especially in a country like ours that is very chaotic. Poems, poetry will help you cope. Poetry will help you through some of your darkest days. But it is not your therapist. Do you understand? If you have headache, you can go under shower, right? You stay under the shower, it calms you down. But you must still buy paracetamol. Are we together? So your poem can calm you down. Your poem can give you coordination. Yeah, right? Can help you, to process what you need to process. But your poem is not your therapist. Therapy is expensive in Nigeria, yes. That's why, at least we can go for, Money is doing well. Who knows Money? Mentally Aware Nigeria Initiative. So if you're not mentally aware, be mentally aware, right? So because, that's why I loved the poem that I read earlier, in memory of Akachi. When things happen, there is a tendency, especially in our country, to blame the person that is sick. Before the person died, the society blaming the person that is sick did not provide what could help the person. Do you understand? So we in the literary community, we must watch out for ourselves. We must help ourselves. If you notice that someone is on the verge of, or if you notice that someone close to you is using poems as a placeholder for therapy, if you can help them. Do you understand? Ask them, how are you feeling? See, I have written a lot of I want to die today poems. I'm serious. Thank you, Gospel of the Prayer. I want to die today. Now, let me disappear. My soul is the ghost in the bottom of the ocean that wants to, I have written poems like that. They are important to help you process, but it must not end there. Do you understand? There must be there's a reason that in the US, the poets, they write lovely poems and still they rally around. If you're on Twitter very well, especially last year during the George Floyd protest, all the poets that I was following, all of them were talking about what are you doing currently? Are you following these people to protest? Where are you going? Are you doing grassroots work? But we don't have structures here. But your kindness can be the structure we have for now. Do you understand? Your kindness that you show to your fellow poets. And that will lead us to the next thing that I want to talk about. I want us to talk about community building as an anti-extinction safeguard. Let's say it together. Community building as an anti-extinction safeguard. Let's have an exercise. Now, I want us to do an exercise. I know you're all eating, but an exercise. Let's do a quick exercise. Imagine that the year is 2035. 2035. Someone walks up to you and they say they are interested in poems, right? And you type Taofeek Ayeyemi on Google, right? 2035, and you type Taofeek Ayeyemi on Google, and you can't find poems that you grew up with. This is our era now, and you can't find poems that you grew up. Where are all of Taofeek's poems? I used to enjoy his poems. He published in this journal when I was growing up. Why are his poems not there anymore? Or why are they not currently accessible? Do you understand? That is what happens when you refuse to document. Ni Yoshundare. You know J.P. Clark. You know Gabriel Okara. You know Wole Soyinka. There were other people in the scene in that period. Were there no other people writing? Please, listen to these names. I'm going to call the name of some journals. If you recognize them, just raise your hand. Do you know the Horn Ibadan? The Horn Journal. Do you know Black Orpheus? You know Black Orpheus, one person. Thank you. Do you know the Beacon? Do you know Arrow? Do you know Catholic Undergraduate? Do you know the Borg? Do you know the Eagle? Do you know the Criterion? You know the Criterion. Do you know the Rag? Do you know the Scorpion? Do you know the Wasp? Do you know Tear Gas? I'm listing names of journals. Do you know the University Voice? Do you know OK Badon? Do you know Horizon? Do you know The Sword? Do you know The Weekly? Do you know Idoto? Fresh Buds, Shokiti, Ife Writing, Unsuka Scope, Okike, Oyiya, Akpata, Ijuomi, Ivi, Ofirima. I'm serious. I'm listing names of journals. Thank you very much. What did you say now? You did not know there were journals. I'm pretty sure if someone like a legend like Tade Padiola hears that, we'll just give you uppercuts. Oh, Mokini. But the truth is that a lot of people like us today do not know our history. I mean, literary history. Why? It's not particularly our fault. I'm telling you that if you do not look out to document, to archive, to sustain everything that we're doing now, it will be forgotten. Your lovely poems, your powerful poems, your sweat, your hard work, gone, forgotten forever. Your metaphors, your similes, every single thing will be gone. And the reason that the West has been able to preserve some of these things is because of structures that they have on ground. Are we together? We're lucky in our era that we have the internet, right? There are a lot of people that I'm meeting for the first time today, and I've been in touch with them for a while. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have been working together for like over a month, building something together. This is the first time we're meeting. Do you understand what I'm saying? We're lucky. We have the internet. So if the poet beside you goes extinct, the poet beside you, if that poet goes extinct, you will also go extinct. Do you understand what I'm saying? That is the work of community. Now, whenever we talk about community, people always think that it means that there won't be people that have arguments with each other. Do you understand? Let's say there's this group of people, this person offended this person in this group. Therefore, you know that clique thing that happens among humans. Therefore, community does not mean that things like that won't happen. But community structure means that the fact that writer A and writer B are beefing does not mean that everybody in writer A, they are going to ensure that they ruin the career of writer B. You know, that's what happens in our scene. I'm not going to mince words with you. Do you understand? If you know, because you can be I'm pretty sure there were a lot of people that were super confident that they were good back then too. And they were like, nobody forgets me now. Because we have a culture of individual excellence in our scene. We have a ton of brilliant poets. But can you point to an archive where, you need to get someone's name? Or you are looking for a poet from Enugu. Like, say you want to read poetry by people in the Southeast. Where do you go? What website do you go? Do you understand what I'm saying? There's this disconnect. And as long as the disconnect continues, in the next 5, 10 years, we're going to be having this continuous rewipe. And people are leaving. They are going for their MFAs. they are going for, residencies. People are running to Canada. As long as we do not build these structures, we're all going extinct. That's literally what I came to say today. That's the becoming poet part that I came to talk about today. As long as you do not look out for the next poet beside you, you are equally going extinct. So we must build structures, and structures involve journals. Let me tell you something now. I said involve journals, that's not the only thing. No. This like this is structure itself too. You understand? This is also structure. Now, those journals that I listed, the reason that you can't get what they have anymore. How many of you know Poetry Magazine? Do you know Poetry Magazine? Now, if I want to read Poetry Magazine issue that came out in 1932, December 1932, all I have to do is go online to their archive and click on 1932. Yes, they have an app too. Poetry has an app. Yeah, all I have to do, either on the app or online, I just go to 1932, go to December. All the poems they published in 1932 December is there for me to see. So all these marks that have disappeared that I listed earlier before, even if anywhere that you're working right now, some of us are working with some magazines. Even if you get to a place where the mag has to close down, ensure that the archive remains up. Do you understand? Let that archive remain. Let it continue to exist. I will not be extinct. Come on. I will not be extinct. All right. Okay, let's round up with this. What I want to say now, to help us round up, is that in all the things that you're doing, in all the, what you say?
So that is always advice, at least for yourself personally. Have and able to have a website where you do. Because even social media, you can't
You understand? I was about to talk about.
Imagine what happened when Facebook shut down for close to 24 hours.
Yeah.
What if that was the end of Facebook?
No, for real.
Imagine someone had been
For real.
on Facebook, basically Facebook. He has been writing for over 10 years.
Yeah.
All his content on Facebook.
So what do you do in that situation?
So having a website, starting a website, design an app too.
Okay.
People don't have apps.
We have. Oh, okay. It's not tech. You said herbs. I had apps. Okay. So what he was saying, that was actually the next. I wanted to say that if you die today now, God forbid. If you die today, no, you have 3 books. If you die today, no, I'm serious. Let me tell you something. Frank O'Hara, the day he died, his friend had to run to his house to gather his manuscripts that were scattered, to ensure that we have the poems that are in launch poems. Do you know launch poems? Frank O'Hara, launch poems. To gather those poems, the day he died, the day the car hit him, his friend that afternoon ran to the house to go save those manuscripts. So in as much as you are building structure, if you die today, where do I go to find your poems? If you die today and all of your friends are sad, right? Oh my God, we have to build a legacy, we have to release his final works, blah blah blah. Where do we go? Exactly. Always ensure. That's why I love the Frank. No, sorry. I'm not saying is. That's why when Okigbo died, they released 50 years issue, his book. I have that book at home. 50 years later, something since he died. I have that book at home. They have new poems in that book that was released. New poems that were not in that. Okigbo released only 1 book. So there were new poems. Where were the new poems from? Exactly, from his archive. From his carefully curated archive. There is one statement in his foreword, or is it his preface? He said, "These versions here are final." That means he curated his work. So if you die today, where will I go? I have a backup plan. If I die now, As I'm standing here, say heart attack do me now. Seriously. I have things that will happen immediately to ensure that even the poems that are really terrible that I don't want you people to see because I'm not done writing them. You will never see them. You will never see them because there's a process in place for that to happen. And the process is not strange. It can be your friend beside you, right? It can be your friend. You are not going to die. Say I will not die. Or plan, right? I've had losses this year and last year, back to back. So please, watch out for yourselves, watch out for your friends, watch out for your enemies. By this is what I mean. When I say watch out for your enemies, if someone does not like you, please don't bury their work because you are beefing them. Do you get what I'm saying? Do not bury their work because you are beefing them. Do you understand? Worst thing you can do, like for you, if you know that someone has really offended you, they've done something so terrible, worst thing you can do is to get out of the way. If you're in a position of power to do something that might affect their career, just get out of the way and let somebody that is not beefing them handle it. Do you understand? But do not stand against someone's work. As long as they did not kill somebody, right? It's not like they say that all minority people should die, blah, blah, blah. Please, I'm begging you. That's what community is, because there is someone right now that hates you. Okay, exaggeration. There's someone that does not like you, right? And imagine if, your work, maybe you die now, and the person is in charge of ensuring that your manuscripts. Imagine if the culture that we have, because that's what we have on ground. Imagine if we don't change that culture. Of course, there are going to be a lot of community amnesia. Why don't we have a lot of women writers from the 90s or 80s? Go to any anthology that you have, secondary school poetry anthology. How many women writers are there? Women poets are there? Were women not writing? Women were writing, but if you don't document, if you don't archive, if you don't do these things, you are not going to make it even 10 years into the future. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you. I hope that. Yeah.